Hello, I'm Mr. Malden, and this is the Middle School Math Toolbox, where I teach you how to become a middle school math master. All right. Today we are looking at data representations. All right. That's going to include box plots, dot plots, stem and leaf plots. I'm going to show you how to make them, but I'm also really going to show you how to work with them. All right. What you need to be able to do when you see them. All right. Data representations are just pictures. All right. That give us reference, give us kind of an understanding, a broad understanding of data. All right. So when you ask, a question that gives you quantifiable data, you can make these different data representations to be able to visually show that to other individuals, and they can see really, really fast, kind of where the concentration of data is, maybe where the median would be, and the least and the greatest, and all that kind of stuff. All right. Well, dot plots is the first one that I want to talk about. A dot plot is just a visual display using a number line and dots to represent each data point, all right? And so you see this dot plot down below. You really have two parts. You have, first of all, a number line. The number line is not the data. It's just reference for the data. It's telling you what the data is worth. And then you've got the actual data set, which are all the dots above the number line, all right? So this dot right here is an actual piece of data, all right? And it's above a 0, so it's worth a 0. And this one's worth a 1, and that one's worth a 1, and then 2, and so on and so forth, all right? So you've got all the dots, that's the data, and then you've got the number line down below that's showing the value of the data, all right? When you have a dot plot, right? You're going to be asked all sorts of different things. You might be asked for the interquartile range, or the range, or the mean, or the mode, or all sorts of different things. You're going to be asked. And for just about everything in data analysis, the very first step is to list the data in order from least to greatest, all right? Everything except for the mean, all right? This is good for that, okay? This is your first step for doing everything but calculating the mean. The mean, you're just going to add all the numbers and divide by how many numbers you have. But for just everything else, you want to start out by listing the data in order from least to greatest. All right. With dot plots, it's important to not just look at the number line and list those numbers. You want to look at the dots. All right. The dots, and then you want to list out each individual dot in order from least to greatest. All right. So you'll see right here, I have a dot at 0, so I listed 1, 0. I have 2 dots at 1. So I'm going to list 2 1s, all right? Not just one, all right? But you're going to list both of them. And there's 1 2, and there's 4 3s, and 3 4s. And guess what? There's not a 5 in my list, all right? And the reason why is because there's not a dot above 5. All right, so just to make that point really clear, when you go to order least to greatest from a dot plot, you're going to want to order the dots, not the number line. You're going to go look at the dots first and tell, what are those worth, and list all those out from least to greatest. Then it's really easy to find the 5 most important values of data analysis. And I call these collectively the LUCU-MUCU-GA. That just stands for the least, the Q1, the middle or median, the Q3, and the greatest, all right? Now I make a tool that I call a data rainbow. It looks like this right here. The 5 circles are the 5 most important values in data analysis, all right? So you start with like the least and the greatest. You're going to put those numbers inside there, all right? And you can find that from your list of ordered numbers. And then you're going to go through the process to locate the middle number. All right, so you're going to scratch off one for one, okay? A lower and a greater, and the next lower, and the next greater. All right, just like that, until you come down to 1 or 2 numbers in the middle. If it's 1 number in the middle, that's your median, like it is for this case. If you came down to 2 numbers in the middle, you would add those together and divide by 2, and that would be your median. Then you've got your lower half of numbers, and your Q1 is going to be the middle of the lower half, all right? So once you circle the lower half, you're going to find the middle, all right? Then you'll circle the upper half, and you're going to find the middle for the upper half, and that's your Q3, all right? So you want to start just about everything that you need to do in data analysis is going to require you to order from least to greatest. And then a lot of times it's going to require that you have to find these 5 most important numbers, all right? The least, the Q1, the median, the Q3, and the greatest. Now then, just to finish out the data rainbow, the big arch is the range, all right? And the way that we find that is we subtract the two numbers that are attached to that. You got the greatest minus the least, so the range is 10, all right? 10 minus 0 is 10. And then you've got the little arc is going to be your IQR, your interquartile range. And that's going to be important towards the later end of this video, all right? But in this case right here, you have 6 minus 2. That would be 4, all right? So the data rainbow looks like this, and that's one of my tools that I like to teach my students, and I teach pretty regularly and use. It's got the lucky muckuga, and then it's got the range connecting the greatest and the least, all right, subtracting, and then the interquartile range connecting the two Q's and subtracting those, all right. So again, just to recap, dot plots are great to kind of visually represent the data, and to be able to work with them, you need to list the order and list the data in order from least to greatest, and then you can go about finding whatever it is that you're trying to find. All right, just like that. Let's move on to the next one, stem and leaf plots. Stem and leaf plots are really similar to dot plots, all right? In that you've got kind of a reference for data and you have your actual data itself. Again, a dot plot, had, different dots above a number line, just like that, okay? Stem and leaf plot is gonna kind of turn it, all right? Where you've got the line in between the value and the actual data is going to be that line that's dividing your stems and leaves. All right, then you're going to have a series of stems over here, kind of like that, all right? These stems, you're always going to want to pay attention to the key down below, which in this case right here, you've got this key down here that line 5 means a score of 55. You want to pay attention to this key because it's going to tell you the value of the stems, all right? You know how I said in the dot plots that this number line is not the data, it's reference for the data, it's telling you what the data is worth. In the same way, the stems are just reference, all right? And usually they count by tens. So this 5 right here is really a 50, all right? And these are the numbers that are in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, all right? And if I had these numbers out beside it over here, these are your data points, all right? These are your data points that collectively make a data set, all right? Just like that. That's what on the dot plot would be the dots. So all of this up here is the data, all right? This over here is the actual data, all right? So if you went to order this least to greatest, like is the first step to do, you would concentrate on the numbers that you see on the right side of the stem and leaf plot. You would list them out. There's that 5. And that 5 right there, because the key told us so down below, all right, it means 55. All right? Then that one right there is a 56, and that's a 58, and that's a 59, and another 59, and so on and so forth. So whenever you're using a stem and leaf plot, you want to focus on the numbers that are the leaves. Those are the actual datas, and then the stems tell you the value of those datas. And so you always want to start by listing in order from least to greatest, all right? So stem and leaf plot displays large sets of data in a table with 2 parts. You got your stems, that's your reference. You got your leaf, that's the actual data, and each individual data is listed in the leaf area. So, all right, there we go. So that's covering the dot plots already. We covered the stem and leaf plots. Now we're going to get to one of my favorites, which is the box plot. Some people call this a box and whisker plot. If you look down here at the bottom, this is an example of it. All right, you see how you have a box right there with the line in the middle. All right, and then you've got 2 whiskers going out to the side. All right, so some people again call this a box and whisker plot. Other people would just call it box plots for short. All right. Now, a box plot displays data using 5 key numbers. Remember I said there's 5 most important values for data analysis. The least, Q1, the median, the Q3, and the greatest. All right, so the lucky muckuga. Those are the 5 most important values in data analysis, and those 5 numbers exist inside the box, all right, where each one of these kind of points or lines in. So you've got the actual least where the whisker ends on the left side. You've got the greatest, the whisker that ends on the right side. And then you've got these three lines right here. That's going to be your Q1, median, and Q3. And I'm going to go through that a little bit more on this next slide. But there you go. You've got the 5 key numbers represented on the box plot. And then you have the actual box itself represents the interquartile range, all right? The distance from Q1 to Q3, all right? So let's take this box plot and let's make sense of it, all right? All right, it says the following data set represents the number of animal crackers found in 7 snack-sized boxes of animal crackers, all right? And you've got these different numbers right here, 34, 50, 49, so on and so forth, right? This box plot down below represents this data right here. So going about the box plot, you need to understand that it's got like 2 parts to it, all right? Just like a dot plot has 2 parts to it, a box plot has 2 parts of it. Part 1 is the actual number line down below. And notice this number line, it only spans the range of the data, all right? So you're going to have to kind of look at your numbers from your data, and then you can make a number line that fits those numbers, all right? So if I had these numbers, this set of numbers right here, I wouldn't want a number line that's, above 200 or, from 100 to 125. I want a number line that encompasses these numbers, all right? And depending on how they're spread out, you may use your number line to count by 1s or count by 2s or 5s or 10s or 100s, just depending on what your data says, all right? But that's the first thing you want to do is put a number line down below. And then you can go about making your box and whisker plot, which I'm going to show you how to do here in just a second, all right? All right, so we're going to do that right here. We've got that same data right there. The first step, all right, see if you can think inside your head what the first step is for working with data. If you answer least to greatest or order them least to greatest, then you're correct. That's the first step that you want to take when you're working with data. Then it's really easy to identify the 5 most important values. You start with your minimum and your maximum, or your least and greatest. Then you're going to go through the process of coming down to your middle. Then you're going to find your lower half, find the middle of the lower half, find your upper half, the middle of the upper half, and there you go. You found your 5 most important values, all right? If I were making them on the data rainbow, it would look like this, just like that. I put those 5 values right here, and then I could find some other information right here, all right? So when you're making a box and whisker plot, the very first thing you want to get is your lucky mucky guy. You want the least, Q1, median, Q3, and greatest. Then you're going to take those 5 numbers, all right? I said then, hold on, before the 5 numbers. Make yourself a number line. Before you start trying to go and make a box and whisker plot, you have to make a number line, all right? And the data right here was in between 34 and 50, so you could make a number line that counts by 1s. I would start, if you were doing that, with the number just below the least, and then I would end with the number that's just above the greatest, all right, just like that. So the number just above the least or just below the least is 33, and then you can count by 1s in the middle, all right? Or you can do like I did right here with this number line down here, and I counted by 5s. You just need to be consistent. If you're counting by 1s, count by 1s. If you're counting by 5s, count by 5s, all right? All right, so you're going to make your number line. Now then, you're going to take your lucky muckuga, all right, your least, Q1, median, Q3, and greatest, and you're going to plot those points above the number line just like that, all right? So you're going to plot those 5 numbers. Now sometimes, every once in a while, you have these numbers, they'll repeat, all right? If that's the case, you'll just write 1 dot above those, and I'll tell you what to do when you get to that situation in a second. All right, so you're going to plot those 5 numbers, the most important, above the number line. Then you're going to go to the middle 3. And when I mean the middle 3, I'm talking about the Q1, the median, and the Q3. You're going to identify the dots that are the Q1, the median, and the Q3, and you're going to draw vertical lines through them, just like that, little small vertical lines through them on top of the number line. So you've got your number line. If I have my 5 dots, above the number line. I need to identify the dot that is the Q1. I'm going to put the line through that. The dots that is the median. I'm going to put a line through that. And then the dot that is the Q3, I'm going to put a line through that as well. All right. Now, if these numbers repeat, it's really important that you locate the Q1, median, and Q3. You put lines through those three numbers. All right. If some repeat, well, then you just obviously just have one line right there. All right. But that line's going to represent the median and or two different values. All right. Whatever numbers repeated. All right. But again, to make a box plot, you want to find your 5 most important values. Then you want to go to your Q1, median, and Q3, draw lines through them, and then box in those lines just like that. Okay? And then you'd go from the middle of the Q1 and you'd draw a line out to the lower outlier, or the least value. And then the same thing for the greatest value. You're going to start at the Q3 and then draw right to the greatest value, just like that. So you've got your box and whisker plots. All right. On the animations, it looks like that. There you go. I closed in the box and then I connected my whiskers, and now I have my box plot. All right. Okay. Now I want you to try this one. So here's how I do this. All right. I want you to pause the video. All right. And I want you to try it yourself. Then, once you've got your answer, come back and unpause the video and see if you got the correct answer. So go ahead and pause right now and then try it yourself. All right, let's go ahead and go through the process here. My first step when I have a set of data, all right, for just about anything other than the mean, all right? So if it's asking for the mean, you're just going to add all the numbers and divide by how many numbers you have. But if you have anything else, if they're asking for anything else, the first thing you want to do is order your data least to greatest, all right? Then you can go about finding your 5 most important values, the least and the greatest. Then you can go through your process to find the median, which again, scratch off the uppers and lowers until you come down to the middle number. Then you'd find the lower half and the upper half, and you're going to have to find the Q1, which is the middle of the lower half, and the Q3, which is the middle of the upper half. Anyways, you need to find all 5 of those values. Once you find all 5 of those values, make sure that you have a number line that fits your data. All right? So I need a number line that has numbers from 7 through 19 at least. All right? So I've got a number line here that counts by 5s, that started at 0 and goes all the way to 20. That way, my data representation, my box plot, will stay within the limits of that number line. All right? Once I draw the number line, I'm going to take my 5 most important numbers, all right, and I'm going to plot them above the number line. So 7, it's going to be in between 5 and 10, but it's going to be a little closer to 5. And then 9s are going to be pretty close to 10, and then 11s just after, and so on and so forth. All right, so you're going to plot those 5 dots above the number line. Then you're going to draw lines through the Q1, median, and Q3, vertical lines. All right, just like that. You're going to box those in, all right, and then you'll draw whiskers out to the least and the greatest, all right, just like that. And so you should have a box plot that looks really similar to that. Now, if you counted by 1s down here on the number line, that just means that it's a little bit easier to read your box plot because you put exact numbers down there, and that's a really good thing, all right? So if you counted by 1s on your number line, you did a good job. All right, so sometimes you're going to be asked to make box plots, and that's what I've taught you how to do. Now, sometimes you're going to be asked to read box plots, like this right here, all right? And a question could have any number. It could be asking for any number of things. It could be asking for, what's the range from this box plot? Range, we need the greatest and the least, all right, which is really easy to find here. Your least is going to be about 2. Your greatest is going to be about 18. All right. So you could find your greatest and least, subtract those. Or it may ask you what's the interquartile range, or what percent of the data lies between these two numbers, or what's your median. There's all sorts of questions they could ask. So when you have a box plot that looks like this, the first thing I encourage you to do is make dots. All right. At each of the individual places where the lines stop, and then you know that they represent the least, Q1, median, Q3, and greatest. So I would make dots for your least, Q1, median, Q3, and greatest. All right? And then, before you start going on to answer the questions, I always like to have students write 25 in each of these 4 spaces. Notice how there's 4 spaces that are created by the box plot, 4 sections. You have the section in between the least and the Q1. You have another section between the Q1 and the median, then another one between median and Q3, and then finally the 4th one between Q3 and greatest. I encourage you to put a 25 in each one of those spaces because it's helping you understand and kind of visually see that these are 4 distinguishable sections that each have the same number of data points in each one of them, and they represent the quarters of the data. So you have the lowest quartile, all right, which is 25%. Then you have the low middle, then the upper middle, and then the upper quartile. So you have 4 quartiles, and each one of those is worth 25%. The reason why that's important is because your question might ask you, what percent of the data lies in between 12 and 16? All right, well, you would go to your number line, 12, that's my Q1 right here, and 16, that's my Q3. The percent of the data that lies in between 12 and 16 for this box plot is one section of 25 and another section of 25. So you have 2 sections of 25%. That would be 50% of the data lies between 12 and 16. So it's really easy to read the box plot when you put the 25s in each one of the sections because it's going to tell you, it's going to basically tell you what, each 25%, what the, the parameters are of that, the least and the greatest values of that individual section. And then you can add up the sections, they're between the 2 numbers that are listed in the question, all right? So I really encourage you to do that. That's just just some tips for reading the number line, all right? All right, let's go ahead and use this given box plot to determine the 5-number summary, all right? So what I want you to do, we're just reading this box plot right here. I want you to find the least, the Q1, the median, the Q3, and the greatest. And maybe you take yourself and you just draw 5 circles down here. And I want you to list the numbers from this box plot. So go ahead and pause the video, try it yourself, and then come back to see if you got the right answer. All right, well, I have my 5 values listed out right here that I need to find. I know my least is going to be where the line stops, or the graph stops on the left side, so that's 11. And my greatest is going to be just above 17. That looks like it's going to be 18, so I'm going to put that as my greatest. My median is the middle line, that's 14. My Q1 is the left side of the box, which is going to be about 12. And my Q3 is going to be at about 16. That's the right side of the box, just like that. So I went and I found my Lucky Muckuga just like this. All right? Now I went ahead and put 25% in each section as well. You're not always going to need that 25%, but it's always a good idea to kind of get in the practice of writing that down so that if your question asks you about what percent of the data lies between 2 such numbers, you've already got this kind of worked with, and it's really easy to go back and find the numbers that it was asking for in the question and how many sections are in between those 2 numbers. All right. Okay, well that concludes how to make a box plot and how to read a box plot. Also for data representations like the dot plots and the stem and leaf plots. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, hit like button down below, share it with friends that this might help, and subscribe to the channel so that you get more notifications for just material that you might be going through while you're in 7th grade. I hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.